Welcome students. In today's session we are going to see about classification of object. So in object oriented analysis you will be analyzing the requirement, and based on the requirements, users requirements, you will be defining the classes that is needed to develop the product. So in this session you are going to see how the classes can be created and how to differentiate the object so that you can be able to categorize the object to one such class. So in this session, you will be seeing the classification of objects. So to make it simple, you will be seeing about classification of objects so that users' requirement and role of the system can be analyzed easily. First, let us see about object. Object is an unique and identifiable and self-contained entity. This entity can contain methods and attributes in it. So it can have some properties for it, and it can also have some behavior. So object can have properties and behavior. Let us see about class. Class is a software template. It can also be called as a blueprint. So this template defines the methods and attributes of object. So if a particular object is belonging to a particular class, so this class will be containing the definition of methods and attributes so that the object will be able to work within the class. So this is the definition of object and class. Now let us see about difference between a class and object. So a class is a template variable, whereas object is an instance of the class. Then class belongs to a static category, whereas object belongs to a dynamic category. So the class is a purely static concept and is represented by program text, whereas the objects are runtime and dynamic entities. It occupies some memory. You have 4 ways for identifying classes. First way is noun phrase approach. The second method is common class pattern approach. Third is use case driven approach, and the fourth is class responsibilities collaboration approach. So this fourth method can also be called as CRC approach. Now let us see in detail about noun phrase approach. In noun phrase approach, you will be analyzing the text description which is given by the user when he is defining the requirements. First, you can able to identify the nouns and verbs in your textual descriptions. So by identifying the noun and verbs in the textual description given by the user, you can able to find out the classes as well as methods in your product. So nouns may describe the classes as well as verbs may describe the methods. Second thing is you have to change all the plurals into singular, and then by making all the plurals into singular, you can define the nouns, that is classes, into 3 categories. One is relevant classes, next is fuzzy classes, the third one is irrelevant classes. So first step is to identify the nouns and verbs in your textual description. After that you have to convert all the plurals into singular. After converting all the plurals into singular, you have to categorize your classes under relevant class, fuzzy class and irrelevant classes. Now let us see about guidelines for identifying the classes. First, you have to look for noun and noun phrases in the problem statement. By looking the noun and noun phrases, you can able to identify the classes for our system. And then the second step is you have to find the classes that make sense in the application domain. If some class name is making some sense for the application domain, that can be added as classes. When you are choosing the classes, you have to carefully choose and you have to carefully define the classes. So these are the 3 guidelines for identifying the classes. Then you have some 4 guidelines for refining the classes what you have identified using these 3 steps. So after identifying the classes, first you have to see whether any 2 classes having the same information. If any two classes is having the same information, you have to avoid those classes and you have to eliminate any one of the classes. If more than one word is being used to describe the same idea, select the one that is most meaningful in the context of the system. And then the second thing is you have to see for adjective classes. So if the object is represented by, if the object can be represented by the noun, and if the object behave differently when the adjective is applied to it, then you can make the noun as an adjective class. Then that comes under the adjective class. Obviously, you will be taking the nouns under classes if you are applying adjective to a noun, and if it is behaving differently, you can make it under an adjective class. For example, membership is a noun. If you are applying adult behavior or adult description to the membership, this adult membership become a separate class. Whereas if you are adding youth to the membership, youth adjective to the membership, youth membership becomes a separate class. So you can find the adjective classes. You have to find the adjective classes. That is the second step. The third step is you have to find the attribute classes. So if the object is using some values, so if the object is used to get some value or if it is used to store some value, only if it is used to get the values, then you can make that object as attribute, not as classes or the object that comes under a classes. For example, demographics of this membership can come as attribute, not as an object. So this membership class will have demographics as attributes in it. So you have to find the attributes of the classes. And then irrelevant classes, in the sense, if you are having a class, it should have some specific purpose for that product. So if the class what you have listed out is not having any purpose, and if the purpose of the class is not clear, then you can eliminate that candidate class. So these are the steps for refining the classes what you have identified previously. The next approach is common class pattern approach. Using common class pattern approach, you can identify the classes of a product and you can able to classify the object so that you can able to say which object belongs to which class. So in common class pattern approach, you will be following the knowledge base of common classes which is proposed by various researchers. So various researchers has said these are some common classes which will be coming for all the products. So based on that knowledge, you will be moving on with you will be starting off the common class pattern approach. And then in this approach, a candidate class can be an event or an organization or a people or a person, places, tangible thing and devices, or a concept. First, let us see how an event can come under a candidate class. So these are some points. Events, in the sense, events are some points in time that must be recorded and remembered. So these events can sometimes come under candidate class. For example, you can able to say order, which is an event that must be remembered. So order is an example for candidate class that comes as a result of event. Next, you can go for organization. Organizations can also come under candidate classes. Organization unit belongs to some people. So this organization can also come under the candidate class. For example, you can say the candidate classes accounting department. Next, people or persons can also come under candidate classes. So different roles users play in interacting with the application. You can have two types of people. One is OOAD, another one is Jordan. So you can two types of people. So you can have an operator or you can have a clerk. So based on the work they are doing, you can divide the people. Based on the role they are performing in the system, you can divide the people into many categories. So each category comes under the candidate class. So candidate class can be the person. So if the person is having a specific role, that role can be taken as a candidate class. Next, if these people who do not use the system but whose information is kept, then those people can also come under candidate classes. For example, you can have information about teacher, you can have information about manager, you can also have information about client. So these are not the persons, these persons are not interacting with the system, but the details of these persons are maintained in the system. So teacher can also be a class, manager can also be a class, client can also be a class. So some people and persons that belongs to the system can become the candidate class for the system. Next, places can also come as a candidate class. So places, in the sense, these are some physical locations such as buildings, stores. So these physical locations can also come as a candidate class. Next is tangible things and devices can also come as a tangible class. Tangible things, in the sense, physical object or group of object. So those are tangible, and the devices with which the application interacts. So those tangible things and devices can also come as a candidate class. For example, car can be a candidate class, sensor can be a candidate class. So it depends on. Next, concepts can also come under candidate class. So concepts, in the sense, concepts are some principles and ideas. They are not tangible, but it is used to organize or keep track of the business. So these concepts can also come as a candidate classes. So in common class pattern approach, these events, organization, peoples and person of the system, places where the system will be acting, tangible things and devices to which the system is communicating, the concepts with which the system is working, these things can contribute candidate classes for the system. So by using the common class pattern approach, you can have many candidate classes because you can have the classes from events and you can also have classes from organizations, places, tangible things, etc. The next approach is use case driven approach. Once the system has described in terms of its scenarios, we can actually examine the textual description and we can able to find out what objects are needed for the scenario to continue. So in use case driven approach, you will be using either a sequence and collaboration diagram pair. You will be using the sequence and collaboration diagram pair. Let us see what is a sequence diagram and let us see what is a collaboration diagram in detail. Here, this is a sequence diagram. In this sequence diagram, you have three objects. One is actor, class 1 and class 2. So, the object of actor will be communicating the message, send message to the class 1, and then after getting the message, this class 1 will be communicating with the class 2. So, these two messages are called as synchronous messages. These are synchronous messages because as a result of send message, you are receiving or you are initiating the another message. So these two are called as synchronous messages. Whereas written message is an asynchronous message. It is not working because of any returned message, because of any incoming message. It is initiated without any incoming message. So this message is called as an asynchronous message. Then you have some actors in your sequence diagram. These are called as classes. These boxes represents the classes. So this dashed line represents the lifetime, and then you can have this arrow represents the sending message and this return arrow represents the returning message. So these are all the things you have to make note in a sequence diagram. Again, this is another example for sequence diagram. Here you have three classes: client class, ATM class and bank client class. So here you have ATM machine. First, the client will be inserting the ATM card to the machine. After inserting, this ATM machine will be requesting the PIN to the user. So the client will be entering his PIN number. Then the PIN number which is entered to the ATM machine will be verified by the bank side customer. So by bank end, this PIN number has to be verified whether the user is an authenticated user or not. After the user is verified, if it is a bad PIN, you have to send the message to the ATM machine that this is a bad PIN, and then this ATM machine will be sending your message that you have entered a bad PIN number message. So this message will be sent to the client and then your ATM card will get rejected. So this is a sequence. This sequence diagram says which object of a class communicates to which object of the class, in what sequence the messages are getting communicated. Sequence diagram always says about the sequence or the order of communication between the objects of a particular class. Next, you can go for collaboration diagram. This diagram is called as collaboration diagram. This collaboration diagram also says about the communication between the classes, but the only difference is here you will be focusing on the messages and the messages are numbered as per the order. So here first you will be having a bank client. So this bank client from the ATM machine, you will be requesting the kind of action what you have to do to the bank. So bank will be asking you to enter the kind of operation what you are doing. After entering the kind of operation like withdrawal or deposit, your ATM machine will be asking you the amount. That amount will be sent to the bank end. So you have to, ATM machine will be sending the message request amount. So bank will be asking you to enter the amount. So after entering the amount, you will be having the process transaction. So either withdrawal or deposit will be happening in your account. After doing all these things, you will be withdrawing the checking amount. So if you are having withdrawal process will be taking place. So 7th step is successful completion of withdrawal process. So that message will be sent to the account class. So account class, after successful withdrawal, it will be saying the transaction is completed to the ATM machine. After the transaction is completed, so ATM machine will be sending the message, cash is dispensed to the bank. Then it will be sending request take cash. So the bank will be getting these messages, dispense cash and request take call. So after that you will be taking the cash. After that you will be requesting the continuation. So these messages will be sent to the bank. So after bank is confirming that you have did all your work like this, withdrawing the amount from the account, your work will be terminated. So here this numbering says which request is given first and from which class to which class the message is given is indicated by the arrow. This represents the collaboration diagram. So here in use case driven approach, you will be using the sequence diagram as well as collaboration diagram. You will be using these two diagrams in a pair and you will be identifying which are the classes needed to make the system work. So you will be analyzing the classes needed for making the system to work, needed for developing a system. Which is CRC approach. CRC stands for Class, Responsibilities and Collaborators. CRC approach is used to identify the classes and their responsibilities. So these are the process in your CRC approach. First you will be identifying the classes and its responsibilities. After the classes is identified, you have to assign the responsibility to the classes. And then after assigning the responsibility to the classes, you have to identify whether the classes is having any collaboration in it. Collaboration in the sense, object of one particular class has its own responsibility. But if the object is performing some other task to assist other object, then you can say that particular object is in collaboration with the other object. So you have to identify whether object of that particular class is having its own responsibility or if it is assisting the other classes, or is the class object is collaborating with the other object. You have to identify whether the object is having any collaboration. Then you have to iterate. You have to identify the class and you have to assign the responsibility, and then you have to find whether the object is having any collaboration. These three steps will be iterated until you are getting an perfect class for your system. Then when you are using CRC approach, you can have CRC cards. CRC cards are 4-inch into 6-inch index cards. So in this cards you will be having all the information of an object. So here for an object you will be having class name and the responsibilities, collaborators in the sense the object if it is having any collaboration with the other object, so the other object name will be described here. So this is the CRC card. CRC card will give a complete description about a particular object. So CRC may start from 1 or 2 obvious cards. So if you need extra cards, you can add or create new objects whenever you are required. Next you can see the guidelines for creating the classes as well as for naming the classes. Here whenever you are naming a class, naming an object of the class, so this class should represent a single object. So class should be described in such a way that single object is represented, singular form of noun is represented. Next you have to give the name for the classes such as user comfortable classes. Then the class name should start with an uppercase. For example, if you are having compound word in your class, for example lawn window, the first letter of each word should get capitalized. So this is called a sentence case, so it has to get capitalized. So you have to follow these 4 rules when you are naming the class. Thank you students. In today's session we have seen about the classification part of object oriented analysis. So here we have seen what is a class and what is an object, and you have seen about 4 approaches for creating classes, for identifying the classes. First method is called as noun phrase approach. The second method is called as common class pattern approach. The third approach is called as use case driven approach, and the fourth approach is called as CRC approach. So we have seen all these 4 approaches in our class today. Thank you.